Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephen. I'm a traditionally published fantasy author. Today I'm doing another why you should read a little bit about an unsung hero within the fantasy genre, someone that I think more people should be reading. Nobody gets there on their own, everybody needs help, and today I'm talking about another legend, a great man, a skilled fantasy writer that everyone should check out. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him and his books, and then why he's important to me. Today I'm talking about British fantasy author James Barclay. James's first novel, Dawn Thief, was published in 1999, and it was the first of a series about a group of mercenaries called the Raven. Let's take a look at what else was coming out in 1999. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just some of the books within the science fiction and fantasy space to give you an idea. Gardens of the Moon, the first book in the Malazan series by Steven Erikson, came out that year. The Fifth Elephant by Terry Pratchett. Angel Fire East by Terry Brooks, the final book in his Word and the Void trilogy. Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Krondor the Assassins by Raymond E. Feist, which is the second book in the Rift War legacy. J.V. Jones, A Cavern of Black Ice. The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. Midnight Falcon, a book by David Gemmell within the Reganti series, and there were lots of other novels out that year. It was a very busy time. So what is The Raven about? This is epic fantasy, or high fantasy if you like. It's set within its own world, and is definitely not a place that was Earth and never was. Dawn Thief was the first book in a trilogy about the Raven, and there was a follow-on trilogy, plus another story later on, which I'll come on to. Now, the interesting thing about the Raven, what I really liked about them as characters, is that they were not farm boys with a destiny. They were not new to each other. They were experienced, they were knowledgeable, they had fought and won together and fought and lost. They were friends, but they were also a disparate group of people. They're all unique individuals who have found their way forward and work well together. It's not a spoiler to say that new characters get added to the Raven as the series moves on, and it's only a minor spoiler to say that some die. So don't get too comfortable, but it also made it feel very realistic that at any point one of the characters could die and you just wouldn't see it coming. Now, the books are full of magic, weird mages with different kinds of magic, but also warriors of legend and renown. Now, the Raven get caught up in big world events. There are monsters, there's magic, there's elves, and yes, even dragons. There are warring nations. There are big sweeping storylines that change the course of events. There's no going back to the status quo at the end of every book. Now, these are the new covers for the book, which are not my favourite, I'll be honest, but I have an original set of UK Gollancz paperbacks, which have these gorgeous covers, and even more rare, they have sprayed edges to match the colours. And this is on a paperback, so that was quite unprecedented at the time. So if you can find them, they're definitely worth hunting down. Now, as I said, the books are full of magic, but also grey characters, snappy dialogue, and great world building. Some people have compared Barclay's work to Glenn Cook, Joe Abercrombie, David Gemmell, and Steven Erikson. Now, the term grimdark is used a lot these days. Predominantly, people say it with a bit of irony, particularly because that's the name they've given Joe Abercrombie, hence his Twitter handle, Lord Grimdark. But of course, it was around a lot longer before Abercrombie. For me, grimdark started with David Gemmell. He wrote novels about morally grey characters who were just trying to do their best in difficult circumstances. Now, of course, it didn't start with Gemmell. There will be others before him, but that was just my experience due to my age. James Barclay's novels are no different. They're complex, they have layered characters, and the people are just trying to do what they can in very complicated circumstances. When asked in an interview to describe his writing, James said, "I'm a fantasy writer, and specifically so far, an action fantasy writer. I write with pace and intensity, an attempt to deliver excitement, emotion, humour, and tension." For me, he and David Gemmell have a lot in common. They write characters with great heart who are also very grey. In addition to the two trilogies written about the Raven, James also has other novels set within the same world and in separate universes, a sort of Barclayverse, if you like. There's a duology called The Ascendants, and he also has an ELVES trilogy. And as of time of recording, James is still writing. In fact, he has a new novel coming out called The Queen's Assassin in June 2022, a standalone novel from Gollancz. So you could check that out, and if you enjoy it, go and then have a look for some of his other novels. Despite spending more time on the acting, James is still involved in the fantasy community, and until last year he was the president of the British Fantasy Society, so he's involved in the events and organising those things in the UK. His work definitely influenced me. He has diverse and interesting characters, great world building, punchy, lean books with lots of great action that make you feel as if you were there with them. And there's definitely a strong parallel between his books and mine because of that aspect. One of the uncomfortable things about being a traditionally published author that people probably don't talk about is that when you're working on a book and it's nearly time for it to go out, we send requests to other authors asking if they could read the book and give us a nice cover quote. Now, I sent an email to James asking if he could read The Coward, and despite being in the middle of moving house, he said he would try to give it a read. And at some break in the wrapping and boxing of things, he sat down and read a couple of pages. He then read the whole book and sent me a great quote, part of which you can see right here on the front cover. As I said at the start, no one gets here by themselves. I had a lot of support and a lot of help from traditionally published authors, but also other people on writing forums, communities, social media, attending events and talking to editors, agents, and of course, many, many writers. Go out there and read some books by James Barclay. See if you can hunt down those awesome paperbacks with the sprayed edges, and watch out for a new book from him in June. So this is why everyone should be reading more James Barclay. That's all I'm going to talk about today, but I'll be back next week with another video.